Saw dudes, today's video was requested by Bobicus Roncatus, sorry if I butchered that, after his unfortunate addiction to Warframe. We're here for you, buddy. Rhino Prime is my most used frame and I love him. A lot of the builds going around advertise reaching Iron Skin overguard amounts in the millions. While that's great, I think that Rhino shouldn't be only focused on that. Rather, he should be built as a jack of all trades and strong in multiple areas. This build will take you through what I think to be one of the best builds for Rhino, a frame for beginners and veterans alike. As a final note, I will be going into depth on nearly all areas of the build, since this video is catered towards newer players, but I will put chapters in the video so that you can skip around. Let's get started. Today's build is focused on getting a decent amount of Iron Skin without having to resort to other options that have been going around. We will not be using the usual charge build. The aura doesn't really matter since we don't need any extra survivability or other perks. I'm using Steel Charge for the additional mod capacity, and because I like using melee weapons. Another option for melee users is Swift Momentum. If you have an Aura Forma, you may want to consider using a Holster Amp or Corrosive Projection. The Exilus slot has a lot of options. Power Drift increases the potency of all of our abilities since it provides ability strength. If you prefer to have more ability range, Cunning Drift could prove useful. Stretch increases the range of Stomp and Roar. This helps crowd control more enemies with every cast and allows teammates to get the Roar buff without needing to be so close. If you aren't very concerned about range and would rather focus on spamming abilities, you can sub this out for Streamline or Fleeting Expertise. Prime Continuity extends the duration of all of our abilities and increases the uptime of Roar so that it doesn't need to be recast as often. The extra duration helps hold enemies in Stomp stasis for a longer period. Transient Fortitude increases ability strength by 55% but reduces ability duration by 27.5%. Since we have Prime Continuity, duration penalty isn't too bad. Iron Shrapnel just allows us to manually remove Iron Skin. This really shouldn't be an augment and should be available to use at base, but I digress. Being able to remove our Iron Skin is pretty important in high level missions since having a low total Iron Skin can get us killed very quickly. Umbral Intensify helps increase Roar's damage buff and base Iron Skin health. Rolling Guard is on the build to provide extra iframes for the build. When Iron Skin goes down, we can roll to get much needed iframes and survive the onslaught. In high end content, this will save us. Prime Flow is necessary on the build since Rhino Prime doesn't have a large energy pool. This build revolves around recasting Stomp, which is a fairly expensive ability to cast. Without Flow, you'll be scrambling to get energy after every cast and won't have much flexibility. Alright, the last mod and arguably the most important to the build is Reinforcing Stomp, an augment that causes every enemy affected by Stomp to refund 4% of Iron Skin's max HP. This scales off of the maximum HP after the invulnerability period. Also, the amount of Iron Skin refunded cannot exceed the upper limit dictated by this period, and the 4% refund does not scale with ability strength. If you enjoy playing Rhino for his ginormous bottom piece, consider subbing. I heard it gets bigger if you do. Alright, so with that out of the way, let's cover all of the arcane options that you have. I consider Arcane Arachne, Avenger Energized, Multi-Augmented, and Multi-Efficiency to be great choices. Arachne increases weapon damage for 30 seconds after wall latching. At max rank, the Arcane provides a 150% additive damage increase, which is more than enough to increase primary weapon damage in endurance missions. It normally does not apply to melee weapons, but does work with Thrown Glaives and their explosion damage, Exotic Contagion, and Tenet Agendis' heavy attack projectile, and Tenet Grigori's slide heavy projectile. Otherwise, it's a very solid arcane given this easy activation requirement. Avenger used to be a non-option on Rhino since the old iteration for Iron Skin would completely prevent its activation. However, since the change to Iron Skin makes it overguard, Avenger can reliably proc. When we get hit by any form of damage, we have a 21% chance of getting a flat 45% crit chance bonus for 12 seconds. For weapons that need extra crit chance like the Kuga Nucor, this will be great. Energize alleviates nearly all energy issues with the build. As I said earlier, Rhino encounters some energy economy issues, and since the build spams Stomp, you might run into problems when running endurance missions. Multi-Augmented increases ability strength by 0.24% with every kill, up to a maximum of 60% at rank 5. This isn't really for anything else other than buffing Roar's damage increase and our subsumed ability. It's solid if you don't want to think about other activation requirements. Finally, Multi-Efficiency increases ability duration by 6% for each second up to 36% at max rank. Duration is pretty nice for reducing the need to recast Roar. It also increases the time that enemies are suspended when hit by Stomp and makes them easy targets. When you think about it, suspending enemies for longer will usually reduce incoming damage, so this is pretty nice. As for the focus school, I believe Xeneric is the best all around. Since we aren't using Ironclad Charge, there isn't much reason to use Matter Eye. Xeneric still provides a 20% bonus to power strength through Hardened Wellspring, which also causes us to gain 5 energy per second for 30 seconds. Energy pickups with Zeneric equipped also supply 50% more energy over a short duration, so you aren't required to run Arcane Energize if you don't want to. As a cherry on top, we can cast one ability for free every 60 seconds with Inner Might. I believe Zeneric to be the most friendly to newer players since it offers a ton of flexibility that other schools just don't. If you have access to Archon Shards, I would recommend using 2 Azure Shards to increase energy max by 100. The rest of the slots are up to you. Personally, I would use the rest on a mix of Crimson and Amber Shards. The Crimson Shards can be used to increase ability duration further, and Amber Shards can be used to increase casting speed so that abilities flow together a bit more easily. Weapon choices are extremely flexible in this build due to Rhino having the best damage boosting ability in the game. That being said, I would highly recommend using weapons that do damage over time, either by elemental effects or slash procs. Since Roar acts as a Bane mod during damage calculation, dot damage is essentially doubled. In the primary slot, I would try out the Tenet Flux Rifle or Felarc since they are insane slash monsters. Roar will make both weapons ridiculously strong and cause slash procs to scale into the highest of endurance missions. For the Tenet Flux Rifle, try going for a Toxin or Magnetic Progenitor. Toxin can easily create Viral. Magnetic plus Viral grants a complete 4.25 times damage bonus with Galvanized Aptitude equipped. The secondary slot will follow the same general rule. I'm using my Kuva Nucor as a primer weapon for Felarcs. However, it is considered a dot weapon since it has a very high heat weight. You pretty much know where this is going. Heat will melt some armor and make each damage instance hit harder than the last. Plus, the beam can chain for easy ad clear. Melees are completely up to preference. You can use a generic slash melee, but I opt to use Vasilok to strip armor by using Shattering Impact. In endurance run disruption missions, you can completely strip Demlist armor and lay into them with your primary or secondary weapon. Keep in mind that Shattering Impact also works on Acolytes and the Stalker, so it makes dealing with them a little easier. If you don't have Vasilok, another option is Aram Spinoza. To further reduce energy strain on the build, I ran Death Cube with Energy Generator. Combined with Zeneric or Arcane Energize, you would be hard pressed to be completely out of energy. I have my Death Cube running Artax to apply status effects to multiple groups of enemies, making it another source of priming enemies for galvanized mods or condition overload. Now, you might have noticed that I subsumed charge off of Rhino. Since we aren't using the Ironclad charge augment, there is no need to use the ability. Here are 2 options for Helminth ability subsumes. First up, we have Nourish, the ability you see in the footage. Nourish grants viral damage to all weapons while it is active, applies 1 viral stack to enemies who damage us, and causes all energy sources to grant more energy. This ability has amazing effects and just stacks on the buffs that Rhino needs to succeed. The extra viral damage is perfect, and the automatic viral application works wonders for our dot-oriented loadout. The next option is Thero Strike. This ability is relatively inexpensive, costing 25 energy at base. The main reason I use it is for defense stripping. At 200% ability strength, this ability will permanently strip armor and temporarily remove shields. If you don't want to use a melee weapon with Shattering Impact, this is perfect. If you are planning to use this ability, please consider using Molt Augmented as one of your arcanes, or equipping Corrosive Projection. With Corrosive Projection equipped, you are only required to have 164% ability strength to full strip. Alright, let's cover the game loop. First, you'll want to roll into enemies to activate Rolling Guard. This will prevent any extra damage from killing us and sets us up for casting Iron Skin. After surrounding yourself with enemies, you cast Iron Skin. Use the invulnerability period to soak up as much damage as possible so that you get a higher overguard amount. After the period ends, use Stomp to stop incoming fire and heal the overguard back to its maximum value. After this, just keep spamming Stomp to heal back the overguard. Once the enemies start to scale, remove the Iron Skin and repeat the first steps. Always keep an eye out for nullifier bubbles. One touch will completely wipe away Iron Skin and put you in a very bad position. Rinse and repeat. Okay guys, that is my beginner-friendly-ish Rhino Prime build. There's a reason why so many people like this frame and continue to play him. I'm sorry that the video was so long, but at least I managed to get it out. Switching between Destiny and Warframe can be extremely jarring, so it's a little difficult. Anyways, try out the build and let me know how it is. As always, thank you all for watching, and happy farming.